there, welcome back to my channel. This is Trisha, the Inky Planner, and today I am having fun making birthday cards galore. I am going to be making several birthday cards using this birthday cover die from the Stamp Market, or B-Day cover die, I believe it's called. And I am just going to take a panel of white cardstock and I'm centering that on the die so that I can use the negative space and the positive space. So I'm just going to use a little purple tape to make sure I get that nice and centered. If you're not worried about the negative space, then it really doesn't matter. You can cut it out of any size cardstock in any direction. But I'm just going to run that through my Big Shot, and that is going to give me both the letters that I can use for the positive die cut and also the negative space. So I just kind of lift my die cut there, put all my pieces into a pile. Make sure you save all those little bits because some are the interior of the letters, and then you also have the dot for the I and for the exclamation point. You can see when I put that negative space right onto a card front, that looks really cool too. So you could use that for a second project. But I am also going to use it today to line up my letters inside of that negative space. It's just going to help me get my alignment right. So again, I'm just putting that on a card front with a little purple tape, and now I get to have fun coloring my letters and making them bright, fun colors. So I'm going to use a variety of Stamp Market inks, and I'm just using the direct to paper technique. So I'm just kind of holding my letter down with a little pokey tool and running the ink pad right over the top of my letters. And I really don't even care that it's perfectly smooth. I kind of think it gives a cool look when you see little drag marks and things, but it's just a fast, easy way to color any small die cuts that you have. For this circle, I actually put the circle right on top of the ink pad and just sort of smush it around with my pokey tool there, and that helps a lot. So I'm kind of running through colors that I have pre-chosen, and I'm going to put these list them up on the side here for you in just a minute. I think this one is blush pink. You'll see. I think I use all Stamp Market inks. Their inks, all their colors go so beautifully together. You kind of can't go wrong. But I've listed up here on the side the order that I colored the letters in, and I'm just kind of making my way through. And I skipped ahead here to the end, and I finished up with navy on that exclamation point. So it's sort of rainbow order. Now, you could just stick these directly to the card. That would certainly be a time saver. And if you're trying to mass produce, I would recommend that. But I wanted to add some dimension behind these letters, so I'm cutting up foam tape into tiny little skinny strips. It's a little bit of a labor of love, but if you cut them all into tiny pieces and you give some dimension behind those letters, it does have a really cool effect. I think it's worth it because you get a little shadow behind the letters once you put them on the card front. So you can see I've done the B here. I'll spare you watching me put foam tape on all the other letters, but they're all done there. And now I can just simply puzzle piece these letters. You're basically kind of inlaying the letters back into the negative space. I have to peel off the release paper on all of your foam strips. And then I'm using a tweezers to help me get the alignment right and plopping them right back in, and they go in just like a puzzle piece. Once you kind of feel them click into place, you know you've got it right. So I will repeat that for all of the different letter pieces. And that's just going to ensure that I get really nice alignment on the card front and that everything's centered and in the same. Now you don't have to follow this, but it turns out nice, just like the die is laid out. But you can certainly arrange these any way that you want. You could do this on a vertical card. You could spell them out so they're all lined up. Instead of being jagged, you could have them all lined up in a nice row. But I think this looks cool. So then I just carefully kind of peel that negative space away, and I have that left still for another project. But my card front is all set to go. And that was a really simple, quick way to get a cute card front. So to finish off my happy birthday wish, I am using this It's Your Birthday stamp from the Stamp Market. And I'm going to stamp that large happy and that will be sort of my sub-sentiment. So I'm going to use my Misty and another piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock. And I'm just going to stamp this in black ink. I just decided crisp black ink against all those beautiful bright colors would look the best. So I'm using Altenews Obsidian black ink here. And I'll stamp that a couple of times. Make sure I get one that has a really great impression. Now I believe there's a die available for this stamp set. I can check on the website, and if there is, I will link it below. But I just went ahead and cut it out. I don't have the die, and so I just kind of fussy cut around the letters, leaving a small white border, and that worked out just fine. It doesn't take too long. It's not too hard, so here I am just finishing up cutting around that happy. So now I have a die cut that I can put right on top of my birthday card. And since I already have dimension on my big bold letters, I'm just going to use liquid glue, and I kind of paid attention to where they would hit, where this happy would hit those letters, because it's kind of floating across. And then that way it will be raised up to the same height as the bold letters that are on the foam tape. So that's all you need for a super simple card, quick and easy, and just some fun coloring and die cutting. But since I had this other negative space, I decided to continue, and I was getting inspired by all those pretty colors, and I dug through my stash and I found this really cool kind of rainbow stripe looking patterned paper. So now I'm doing the opposite. I'm going to take the negative space of my die cut, and I'm going to go a little crazy with all of the thin strips of foam tape, and I am going to cover the back of that with foam tape, as you can see. Might have gone a little nuts. And now I am just going to adhere it to the front of that patterned paper so that you can see through the patterned paper when you look through the letters of the die cut. And I think that is a really cool look too. So all that's left to do for this card is to add some adhesive to the back of our panel, which is cut slightly smaller than an A2 card. Because remember, that was what we used when we originally put this on the die cut, the cover die. And then I will put that on the card front, and it will leave a nice little border all around, which adds even more dimension and interest to the card, which I think looks cool. Now, to put the happy part of this happy birthday greeting, instead of stamping and cutting again, I decided to die cut from a happy greeting that I had, die cut that I had in my stash. I think this is from Simon Says Stamp. I'm going to check it out and link it below. But I'm going to layer this up a few times. I think I used 3 layers of happy to give it some, to make it sturdy and give it a little more height and thickness, and then I'm just gluing that directly onto the white negative space on that card front. So I have decided to move on to yet another card. I got on a roll with these babies, and I just decided to keep going. So I cut another one of those birthday cover dies, and this time, instead of using foam tape, I'm just going right ahead and gluing it straight down to that same rainbow striped pattern paper using my liquid glue. And in order to get dimension on this card, rather than all that foam tape, I'm just using a large piece of foam behind the whole panel. So my whole panel will be popped up, and I'll still have a little interest on the card, but I didn't have to spend all that time cutting the tiny little slivers of foam tape. So this is another option, and I think that one looks really cool too. So I did the same thing that I did on the first card by stamping and fussy cutting the happy from that Stamp Market set. And I'm just going to add that with some liquid glue right onto this card in the same position to give me another variation on this cute cover die card. So at this point, I just couldn't bring myself to stop. I pulled out yet another stamp from that It's Your Birthday stamp set, and I'm going to make another birthday card with that same B-Day cover die. And I'm just using, you can see I'm very frugal with my paper, and I use every little scrap. If I can fit it in there, I don't want to have to throw out my Nina Solar White. So off screen, I'm sorry I didn't catch it on camera, but off screen, I just ink blended a panel using some corals and yellows, and made like a little ombre from right to left. And I popped up that negative space of the birthday cover die onto the ink blended panel. And then I'm adding "It's Your" as my sub-sentiment here. So it reads slightly different this time, and it says "It's Your Birthday." And that card just got finished off with a few enamel dots. So here I go again with yet another card. I've done so many of these panels that I've got like a big pileup of letters next to me. So I decided to ink up another round of letters, use the same technique, direct to paper, and this time I just chose a slightly different color palette. And I'm using the negative space to line these up and just adhering them direct to the card panel with my liquid glue. So now I'm peeling away that background, and I did skip the exclamation point here because I'm going to add another sentiment from that "It's Your Birthday" Stamp Market stamp set, which is "Wishes," which I stamped in black and fussy cut. And I will put that at the end of my sentiment, and that way it reads "Birthday Wishes." So I left off the exclamation point. Then I'll take a little bit of coordinating blue cardstock just to add another pop of color, and I didn't even make it the same height as my entire card front. I just ran a strip of it so it peeks out from either side. I'll put some fun foam behind that and adhere that with liquid glue, and that will pop my whole panel up onto my card front. So you can see this is what the finished card looks like. For yet another panel, I am going to ink blend. I've got 3 colors of Distress Oxide ink here: Salty Ocean, Peacock Feathers, and Twisted Citron. And these blend so easily and so beautifully together. If you just keep working at it and make sure you overlap your colors, you will get a gorgeous ombre effect. So I'm just using my mini ink blending tools and blending foams to apply ink to this panel, which is slightly smaller than an A2 card front. And I'm just kind of roughly doing this in thirds, and then I go back over where the colors meet with each color again, just to kind of make them blend really well. So once I get all 3 on there, I'll go back over again and make sure that the colors just blend beautifully right into one another. So once I've got my panel done, I am filling a mini mister with a little bit of water and a little bit of Perfect Pearls and giving it a spritz. And it's a little hard to catch up on camera, but it reacts with that Distress Oxide and it creates little droplets where it almost bleaches out the color and also gives some shine. So I'm doing the same process over and over again here. I've got that birthday cover die that I have done out of white cardstock, and I am just gluing my ink blended card panel right behind that. And I thought that for this one, for whatever reason, I wanted to include the innards, like the little insides of all the letters. So the best way to line that up is just to pop one of the die cut letters right back into place and use that as a template, and then you can fill in all the little interiors of all those letters. So for my sub-sentiment on this card, I decided to try to stamp that happy from the same It's Your Birthday stamp set and do it right over the top of my card. Now I know I've got a couple different layers going on here, so it's going to be a little bumpy, but with the MISTI, I thought I would give it a try and just really push. You can see my first time, the ink didn't really get down into those sunken areas of the letters, but if I really pushed at it, I figured I would be able to get it pretty close And then I knew I could fill in any gaps with a black marker if I needed to. So I really just, gave it some elbow grease there, pushed it pretty well, and it didn't come out too bad. I actually thought it worked pretty well. And all you need to do, if you ever have a stamp that doesn't stamp perfectly, is you can fill it in with a little bit of marker. I've got a Copic multi-liner here, and I'm just touching it to any spots where the ink didn't quite go over the edge of the top layer. And it's kind of a cool effect to have that sentiment stretch right across the whole card panel. I had one last card in me for this marathon session, and this one is super simple. If you have an open cover die type of card front, you can always just line up some cool washi tape. I just repeated this rainbow stripe washi tape from the Stamp Market in several rows. I didn't even go all the way to the top and bottom. I just kind of wanted it to be under the bulk of the openings of the letters. And I'm just using some foam dots behind my cover die. And you can see when you pop that up, you get a really beautiful background behind the cover die. Well, I couldn't tell you what happened, but I somehow lost all of the still shots and close-up photos that I took of all of these cards and the tail end of my videos. So I'm so sorry for that, but I wrestled with whether to even publish this video, but I thought, there's still a fair amount of good content and technique in here, so hopefully you guys still appreciate this and forgive me for my technical glitch here. But I sure had fun making a whole big batch of birthday cards. I would rephotograph them, but I gave this whole batch of cards away to a local charity I donate to, so I don't have them in my possession anymore to take better pictures. So thanks for your grace on that one, and thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a while since I've put a video up, and I am recommitting myself to being back in this habit. So if you like what you see here, please give me a thumbs up or subscribe, and I'm going to try to pull some more content together on a more regular basis. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.